Musings with Saiko. How to save Star Wars. I don't think it's controversial to say that Star Wars is in a bit of a decline. Ever since the House of Mouse brought Star Wars into the Magic Kingdom, it's lost some of its luster. It started strong, but film after film, and now series after series, Disney is missing the mark. I'm not saying there haven't been some bright spots, but overall the trend is downward, and despite how massive Star Wars still is as a brand, Disney would be wise to heed the wisdom of George Lucas.
You can do it. You can destroy these things, you know. It is possible.
There are lots of videos and articles that detail the many things Disney is doing wrong with Star Wars, and so that's not what I want to do. I want to focus on solutions. I believe there's still hope. I believe the ship can be turned around. I believe we can take what Disney Star Wars created, recontextualize it, elevate it, and point it to a bright and sustainable future. Let's save Star Wars, shall we? My proposal is...
Wait for it.
A new Star Wars trilogy. Now, I know what you're thinking. Disney's been announcing and canceling and delaying Star Wars trilogies left and right. Why would yet another trilogy help things at all? Well, I can answer that with two reasons. One, we need to actually conclude the Skywalker saga. Disney may want to pretend they properly closed that chapter of Star Wars history, but they didn't. The Rise of Skywalker was not the elegant closure Disney was hoping for.
Rey Skywalker.
Which leads me to my second point. In order to conclude the series, we need another trilogy. Why? Because it rhymes.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Star Wars started with a trilogy, it continued with a trilogy, and Disney attempted to conclude it with another trilogy. So, to follow the Star Wars schema and give an actual ending to the Skywalker saga, it needs to be a trilogy.
1, 2, 3.
And those three movies should be, of course, episodes 10, 11, and 12. And they should star none other than...
Wait for it.
Rey and Finn. Whether we like it or not, Disney Star Wars is canon, and the only way to move forward is through. Their characters can't just be forgotten or tossed aside. They need to be rehabilitated and properly integrated into the Star Wars lore. Rey needs to become more interesting than an overpowered goody two-shoes who overcomes every obstacle with little to no effort. And Finn needs to become more than a comic relief sidekick who runs around screaming Rey.
Rey! Rey! Rey!
If we can revitalize the images of Rey and Finn while showing respect and giving real closure to the Skywalkers that came before, I think we can get Star Wars back on track. Well, now that you know my plan, let's get into the details of the movies.
Gather round, my son, and I shall tell you a tale.
Disney has already announced that they're making a Rey movie that's supposed to take place around 15 years after the events of The Rise of Skywalker, and it'll be about Rey rebuilding the Jedi Order. I think that's as good a starting point as any, so let's start episode 10 from there. The movie begins with Rey as a seasoned Jedi Master, much like Luke in The Return of the Jedi. She's had a few Jedi students and has trained a handful of Jedi Knights. The Jedi are returning to the galaxy as a force of good. Finn, on the other hand, is now a high-ranking official in the burgeoning Republic. He's better with his Force powers because of some training he did with Rey, but he's definitely not a Jedi. He essentially put down his blasters in favor of his pen and his voice, which he uses to help unite factions and maintain peace. Rey and Finn, along with many other factions, are all working together to rebuild the Republic, and so far things are going well. Towards the beginning of the movie, Rey goes on a mission to find and recover an additional book of the Jedi text. She hopes to use its wisdom to help guide her as she continues to build and grow the Jedi Order to meet the demands of the continuously expanding Republic. She's successful in her mission, finds the book, and begins to study it. But note, the audience will never be shown the contents of the book, and that will be important later. Later in the movie, Rey and Finn are in talks with some people who want to join the Republic. Negotiations are going well, but moving very slowly. Rey then uses the Jedi mind trick to speed up the talks, and it works. But Finn is unsettled by her use of the Force and privately calls her out. However, she brushes off his concern because of the timeline they were on. She explains that had she not pushed things forward a little faster, they would have run into bigger problems further down the line. Finn accepts her reasoning, but it's clear he's still perturbed. As the movie progresses, Rey continues to use her Jedi powers to manipulate and force conclusions she wants, and Finn grows more and more suspicious. The movie ends with Finn questioning Rey about her actions, showing concern that she's relying too much on her Jedi powers and not using diplomacy as much as she should. Rey gets frustrated that he doesn't trust her but does try to calm Finn's worry. Finn pretends to be reassured, but his senses, perhaps because of his connection with the Force, are still telling him something is wrong. For the first time ever, he believes Rey might have lost her way. He knows he cannot simply confront her as she's too powerful, so he quietly disappears and goes on the run. He needs to figure out what's happened to Rey and he needs to find help. And that's how episode 10 ends. Now, I know this doesn't sound like the most exciting Star Wars movie, but in my defense, I'm only giving you broad brush strokes. A large part of the plot will be trying to get different factions to come together under the umbrella of one united republic. This could entail skirmishes and adventures and all sorts of fun scenes to keep things engaging. But the main threads that connect the movie will be that Rey finds a secret Jedi text, begins acting fishy, and Finn, and only Finn, starts noticing that something is wrong in her behavior, and so he sets off alone to investigate. With Finn gone, Rey is able to expand the Jedi Order and her military presence without anyone questioning her tactics. For the most part, the galaxy and the Republic still view Rey as a force of good, but more and more people who've had direct contact with her and her methods are growing suspicious. Meanwhile, Finn remains hidden away, only talking to trusted friends. He's convinced something is wrong with Rey and continues his investigation of her actions and her history. Finding no leads and no plausible explanation, he turns to the Force. It's a struggle at first, but he remembers the lessons he learned from Rey, which could be shown via some flashbacks. And eventually he taps into the Force and is contacted by none other than Force Ghost Luke. Back in Rey's camp, her influence grows, and with it, her confidence and bravado. She's quicker and quicker to resort to using the Force and violence instead of diplomacy. She begins to push away people who show any dissent, and it's becoming more and more clear that she is going towards the dark side.
Something, dark side.
Jumping back to Finn and Luke. Luke reveals that Rey is a Palpatine and that he's tried to help guide her, but she's pushed him away, so he can't appear before her. Finn is shocked at learning of her ancestry, but he's still convinced she's good and can be saved, much like Luke believed in Darth Vader.
I can save him. I can turn him back to the good side.
Finn's convinced that something is pushing Rey towards the dark side, and he remembers the new Jedi text she discovered back in episode 10. He tells Luke about the book and how Rey has been studying it, but Luke informs Finn that there are no other Jedi texts. The only one that existed were collected by him and then taken by Rey. So whatever book she's reading, it's not from the Jedi. Determined to help Rey, Finn decides to sneak back into her headquarters and find that book. But before he leaves, Luke insists that Finn brush up on his use of the Force because there's a chance he might have to fight Rey. So Force Ghost Luke trains Finn. And when a movie has a training sequence, you know what it needs. It needs a montage.
We're gonna need a montage.
With his training complete, Finn sets off to Rey's headquarters to break in undetected and find the book. And remember, this is all just broad strokes, so maybe Finn can team up with a few of his allies to help with the mission. It can be a fun, entertaining heist-style sequence. And it'll end with Finn finding the book, opening it up, and discovering that it's the personal journal of...
Wait for it.
Senator Palpatine. Shocked by the finding, Finn doesn't notice that Rey enters the room. He's caught. He questions her on why she has the diary. Rey admits that it was just a curiosity at first. She wanted to know more about her past. She explains that the journal was written well before Palpatine turned into Darth Sidious, and that his ideas are sound, but he just didn't implement them correctly. She says that Palpatine became obsessed with power and fearful of betrayal, and that's what led him to the dark side. But she wouldn't make his same mistakes. She would take the wisdom but not his fear, and she will bring long-standing peace to the galaxy. Finn argues that she's already following in Palpatine's footsteps, that she's already crossing that line, and if she doesn't stop, it'll be too late. Rey suddenly attacks Finn. She claims she doesn't want to, but she can't let him leave with what he knows. The name of Palpatine is marred with controversy, and if it got out that she was using his teachings, people wouldn't trust her. And then they fight. While Finn is stronger because of his training with Luke, he's still no match for Rey and is losing the fight. Their lightsabers get locked together. But before Rey can do him in, Finn calls out for Luke. The mention of Luke's name momentarily distracts Rey, which allows him to summon Luke forward. Force Ghost Luke appears and calls for Rey to stop and remember who she is. This pulls Rey's attention and gives Finn the opportunity to push back with his lightsaber, slashing Rey's face and escaping. And that's the end of episode 11. Rey and Finn are officially at odds, and Rey has succumbed to the dark side.
Something, dark side.
Rey, now scarred, has embraced her Sith self. She's declared Finn an enemy of the state and has tightened her grip on the newly formed Republic. Much of the Jedi Order has joined her in the dark side, and those who didn't were either killed or have gone into hiding. She also has an elite set of Jedi Knights as her personal guards, the Knights of Rey, which won't suck unlike the Knights of Ren. Finn is in full hiding and the head of a small group of escaped Jedi, soldiers, and resistance fighters set on stopping Rey from completing her empire. He knows that if he's ever to challenge Rey in battle, he'll need more training, so Force Ghost Luke and Finn go back into training. This time it's more extensive and challenging than from episode 11, which means we're gonna need another montage.
We're gonna need a montage.
Rey continues to spread her dominance across the galaxy, but knows that with Finn out there, and with the help of Force Ghost Luke, it's only a matter of time before he makes his move, and if she's caught off guard, it could mean trouble for her plans. She uses her power, influence, and fear to try and find Finn and the location of his resistance group, but it's to no avail. Growing more and more desperate to find him, she decides that if she can't go to him, she will make him come to her. She finds a well-populated city that has yet to join the new republic and sends her military to surround the boundaries of the region to prevent anyone from escaping. Then she positions her capital ship above the area, pointing its laser cannon at the city's center. Rey then releases a statement across all her lines of communication. If Finn doesn't come to face her on her ship within a week's time, she will destroy the city and disintegrate everyone within it, and she'll repeat that process for another city over and over until Finn appears. Through his network of spies, Finn immediately learns of Rey's threat and knows he must go and face her. He uses the little time remaining to complete his training with Luke and heads off to confront Rey one last time. When Finn arrives at Rey's capital ship, he's accompanied by a little droid. He's stopped by security and he and his droid are inspected. The droid gives off an odd energy reading that triggers the soldiers to inspect the droid more closely. They find a compartment that contains a peculiar item. As audience members, we won't know what the soldiers see, but Finn explains that it's a gift for Rey and the soldiers allow it through with the droid. Rey and Finn meet in the throne room of the capital ship. He tries once again to remind her of her humanity, to remind her of the light side of the Force. He opens up the storage compartment in the droid and we can finally see what's inside. It's Luke and Leia's lightsabers. He reminds her that she's Rey Skywalker. In response, she smiles, but corrects him. She's a Palpatine, and ignites her saber. Then Finn ignites both Luke's and Leia's lightsabers and braces for combat. He's dual wielding. They fight and it's an epically awesome battle to see on the big screen. Finn is much more powerful than before and Rey notices.
And I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
But despite his improvement, Rey is still more powerful. Eventually, Rey tires Finn out, and Finn, knowing he can't win, turns off his lightsabers and once again tries to remind Rey of her humanity. Annoyed by his giving up, Rey uses her Force lightning powers to inflict unbearable pain on Finn, torturing him, a prey playing with her kill. He calls out to her. Rey! He pleads for her to wake up, to see what she's doing, that this isn't her. She hesitates for a moment, but shrugs it off. Rey is lost. Accepting that Rey is gone, Finn apologizes to her. He tells her he wished he could have helped her, but he has to stop her no matter what. He calls out to the droid to begin the countdown. You see, the droid was embedded with a large explosive. It wasn't detected because of the energy fields the two lightsabers produced. And Finn, while fighting Rey, had cleverly guided her out of the throne room and near a main energy conduit of the ship. So when the droid explodes, it'll rip into the energy vein, causing a chain reaction that'll destroy the entire ship.
Clever girl.
Rey immediately realizes Finn's plan and exclaims that the explosion will kill him too. But he accepts his fate because saving millions of people across the galaxy is worth his life.
The needs of the many outweigh
the needs of the few.
The bomb goes off in a bright flash of light. But a moment later, Finn realizes he's still alive. He looks up at Rey and sees that she is using her Force powers to prevent the explosive chain reaction from consuming the ship. However, it's clearly taking a lot of her strength to keep it from spreading. Rey turns to Finn and tells him where the nearest escape pod is. She tells him to run. Finn can see in her eyes that she's back. It's Rey, his Rey. He hesitates to leave her, but she yells that she can't contain the reaction for much longer. He needs to go. They make eye contact one last time. She thanks him, and then he leaves. Finn escapes in the pod just as the ship explodes with Rey inside. The film ends with a celebration and, similar to the ending of The Return of the Jedi, Finn sees Force Ghost Luke and, next to him, Force Ghost Rey. She's back in the light. And thus concludes the trilogy. I believe Rey can only be redeemed as a character if she's pushed down the path to the dark side. A criticism of her character is that she's overpowered. She's too good, she does everything well on her first try, and she's all the Jedi.
I'm all the Jedi.
She didn't even have an arc. She was good at the beginning and only got better and more powerful as the series went on. Some people push back on that criticism by saying that Anakin suffered the same poorly written arc. He was strong at the beginning and only ended up stronger. Well, if that's what you believe, then I'll give you the argument. But don't forget, Anakin succumbs to the dark side. If being an overpowered, whiny little know-it-all,
It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's jealous.
led him down the path to the dark side, it only stands to reason that Rey's goody two-shoes and equally know-it-all ways
What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
could also lead her away from the light. Another reason why she should go dark is because she's already too powerful as it is. What challenge will Rey run into after defeating Palpatine and becoming all the Jedi? Either Disney will have to nerf her strength like a patch to a fighting game, or have her continue to dominate and solve everything all the time. It's boring. If she goes to the dark side, then all her strengths, all her overpoweredness becomes a threat. When a hero becomes too strong, the obstacles in the story become useless and uninteresting. But the stronger a villain becomes, the more threatening they are, and the more satisfying it is when they're eventually defeated. For 3 movies straight, Rey has become an unstoppable force. To take all that momentum and have it flipped around so she becomes an unstoppable force of evil?
Baby, you got a stew going.
And finally, some of you may not appreciate Palpatine coming back as an influence yet again, and I can understand that, but I think it makes sense given Rey's history. It's genuinely possible she could still be conflicted at being a legit Palpatine, and might wonder if he was always evil, maybe even looking if she could find some redemption to her original surname. Also, the idea of a character finding a book and being influenced by it is a tried and true storytelling tactic. It was used in Harry Potter when he found notes from the Half-Blood Prince that taught him some dark spells, and in Sons of Anarchy where Jax reads his father's diary throughout the series and it influences his view of the club and how it should evolve. Even though Rey wanted to do good in the world, I think it's believable that she could still be conflicted at being a Palpatine, and that, coupled with the bad ideas she finds in his journals, could lead her down the path to the dark side.
Something, dark side.
Because, as the old saying goes, the path to hell is paved in good intentions. Many Star Wars fans, old and new, agree that Finn had the greatest potential to be the most interesting character in the Disney Star Wars trilogy. The idea of a Force-sensitive stormtrooper defecting as an adult and turning against his oppressors is ripe with story potential. But instead of picking the fruit from that tree, Disney decided to turn Finn into a comic relief sidekick who screamed Rey. Rey! They all but ignored his Force sensitivity and didn't even touch on any aspects of PTSD or the trauma of being kidnapped as a child and brainwashed to be a stormtrooper.
You serious?
This trilogy would give Finn an arc where he had to confront the memories of his past through his Jedi training and allow him to become a truly heroic character instead of stripping it away like in The Last Jedi. Also, if anyone were capable of noticing the subtle steps Rey takes towards the dark side, it would be Finn. He grew up in a surveillance state. He would definitely be able to sense that something was up with Rey when her behavior starts changing. It just works. Lastly, I believe the trilogy works for Star Wars because it continues the themes George Lucas started with the OG series. It's still about one's relationship with your family, your father, and your past. And it all concludes in redemption. So once again, it rhymes.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Also, this trilogy would completely recontextualize the Disney Star Wars trilogy. Instead of those films being labeled The Rise of Skywalker, they could be remarketed as what they truly are, which is The Rise of Rey Palpatine. It's not too hard to believe that Palpatine wins at the end of the Disney trilogy.
Kill me, and my spirit will pass into you.
So lean into it. If we're to believe that somehow Palpatine came back, then we can believe his progeny won too. This also means episodes 1, 2, and 3, or The Rise of Anakin Skywalker, will rhyme with Disney's episodes 7, 8, 9, or The Rise of Rey Palpatine. Furthermore, the original episodes 4, 5, and 6, or The Rise of Luke and the Redemption of Anakin, will rhyme with this trilogy's episodes 10, 11, and 12, or The Rise of Finn and the Redemption of Rey. See, it all just works. It completes the loop, it completes the series. Finally, this trilogy will give Star Wars fans something we hope to see in the Disney trilogy, but they decided to subvert our expectations. And that is a legit training sequence between a student, in this case Finn, and Master Jedi Luke Skywalker. In fact, this trilogy gives you 2 such sequences, so we can indulge in the awesome power of Luke and his Master Jedi wisdom. The long and short of it is Disney should make Rey go to the dark side. They should make Finn a heroic Jedi Knight and not just a comic relief. Finn and Rey should fight in the end, and Rey needs to sacrifice herself to save Finn and thus redeem herself, like Darth Vader did for Luke. Then the Skywalker saga and Palpatine saga can end once and for all. If Disney wanted, they could continue the adventures of Finn and his quest to rebuild the Jedi Order with Force Ghost Luke as an advisor, and maybe a little cameo from Force Ghost Rey. But it won't be a Skywalker story anymore, and the Star Wars universe can officially open up to new adventures in the galaxy far, far away.